When Miss Johnson bolted her door, she had in mind the dead as well as the living. By employing verisimilitude to assume Barbara Johnson's thoughts, Capote capitalizes on her desperation to retain the American dream. Since all of her siblings have, in her eyes, failed in what life should be, she isolates herself and alienates her only surviving brother. Capote emphasizes her children and house to comment on the greater inaccessibility and vulnerability of the American dream. The more that Bobo gets, the more scared she becomes of Perry stealing the dream from her, like he did to the Clutters. This is evidence of Capote projecting the sense of false stability the dream provides. So in a way, this could be Capote validating his inability to attain the dream by striking down its influence.
Liquor had blurred her face, swollen the figure of the once sinewy, limber Cherokee girl, had soured her soul, honed her tongue to the wickedest point, so dissolved her self-respect. Capote, page 131. Capote uses verisimilitude in this quote, emphasizing Perry's mother's neglect and potential alcoholism. Perry's lack of maternal guidance appears to be one of the reasons he becomes a misguided kid and eventual murderer. Similarly, Capote's own mother had also abandoned him as a child, making him resent his mother and feel as though he was denied access to the American dream. This insertion of himself allowed Capote to make Perry's background more compelling and allows Capote to further illustrate how factors outside of one's control, i.e. their family and mother, block individuals from achieving the American dream. Capote's excessive descriptors of Perry's drunken, vomiting mother are prime examples of Capote using verisimilitude to insert himself. She woke me up. She had a flashlight and she hit me with it. Hit me. And when the flashlight broke, she went on hitting me in the dark. Capote online, page 148. In this quote, Capote details the abuse Perry endured during his time at a Catholic orphanage. This quote presents an example of verisimilitude as the level of detail is so precise that it seems Capote is using Perry's real experience of being mistreated in an orphanage and stretching it to make Perry a sympathetic character. By building this sympathy, Capote is illustrating how the orphanage and the Catholic Church worked to make Perry the killer he became. This questioned the idea of the time that the church was a pure, holy institution and disproves the idea that the American dream was accessible to all, as even the church provided a barrier to it.
Will blast hair all over them walls. Capote 22. Capote uses verisimilitude to villainize Dick. Throughout the book, Capote uses Dick as the ultimate villain who is ruining and making the American dream unachievable to many. Dick ruined the American dream for the Clutters when they were murdered, taking away from their good life. Also, it could be said that Dick and his family had a good American dream life, but once he turned bad and a murderer, he ruined his family's life as well as his. Capote uses verisimilitude, allows us to put blame on Dick for ruining people's lives and dreams. After drinking the glass of milk and putting on a fleece-lined cap, Mr. Clutter carried his apple with him when he went out the doors to examine the morning. It was ideal apple-eating weather. Capote 10. In society, the Clutters are seen as the perfect family, going to church every Sunday and being well off. Even Capote portrays them as living the American dream or really close. In this quote, we see verisimilitude showing Mr. Clutter's unspoken morning routine, which also helps represent his good life, eating an apple in good weather and enjoying it. However, later that night, it would be shown that he was stripped of his American dream by being murdered along with his family. Capote uses this verisimilitude to show how unachievable the dream is, even to those who seem to have it.
She was nervous. She suffered little spells. Such were the sheltering expressions used by those close to her. Capote 7. In this quote and throughout the book, Capote portrays Bonnie as mentally unstable and at times unable to fulfill the duties of motherhood. This description of Bonnie appears to be unsubstantiated by the two surviving daughters and brother. Most likely, Capote learned of Bonnie's condition from rumors spread in the community. Either consciously or subconsciously, Capote inserted his own resentment towards his mother in his portrayal of Bonnie, as both women were absent from their child's lives.
Capote never spoke to either Beverly or Aviana, the two surviving Clutter daughters, in gathering evidence for In Cold Blood. An article from a Kansas journal says, Capote did not talk to any of the family members or friends who could have provided accurate and reliable information about the family. In doing so, Capote gives himself creative freedom to mold the image of the Clutters to fit the commentary he wanted to make about the American dream. Perhaps Capote considered the sisters' lives too normal to fit into his prescribed image of the Clutter family. To make up for this gap, he employs verisimilitude and either emphasizes or neglects certain aspects of the Clutters' lives to paint the family as the epitome of the white picket fence American dream.
Kenyon doubted it. He could never conceive of ever wanting to waste an hour on any girl that might be spent with guns, horses, tools, and machinery, and even a book. Capote, 39. During this time period, the ordinary life, married, raising a family, was something young boys and girls were supposed to start looking for. And his sister, only 1 year older, had started thinking about her life to come with her boyfriend. This quote, while it is verisimilitude, shows how Kenyon wasn't living the American dream, like he was supposed to. No one knew Kenyon's inner thoughts, but he was portrayed this way, failing to grasp onto the dream by Capote. Capote inserts himself by describing Kenyon much like himself when he was younger, not into girls, focused on himself and even books, illustrating how the American dream is both limiting and out of reach by most Americans.
Bonnie's bookmark in her Bible says, "Take ye heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is." Capote 30. Capote employs verisimilitude here for several reasons. 1, he is using the verse to foreshadow the Clutter's murder. 2, he creates irony between the verse advising Bonnie to be precautious and the fact that she was murdered in the night. 3, Capote uses the bookmark to make a connection to the greater American dream. The dream itself has roots of Christianity, so we see Capote yet again comment on the fragility of the dream through his portrayal of the Clutter's facade of attaining it.
Dewey enjoyed hiking across wheat fields. He went for long walks on his own land, where he had always hoped to build a house, plant trees, eventually entertain great-grandchildren. That was his dream, but one his wife had lately warned him that she no longer shared. Capote on line 233. This quote is an example of verisimilitude, as Capote assumes the role of an omnipotent narrator, speaking about Dewey's inner desires. This verisimilitude allows Capote to build the image of the idyllic, family-centric American dream. Furthermore, Marie's rejection of rural life, as it now represents danger to her after the Clutter's murders, which was possible partly because of rural isolation, is representative of how the American dream was shifting from rural America to the suburbs through suburbanization in an attempt to create safer communities.